Hello children, today I shall be teaching you the Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. Let's have a look at the author first. William Butler Yeats was born in Dublin, Ireland on June 13, 1865. He was the son of a well-known Irish painter, John Butler Yeats, and widely considered to be one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. He belonged to the Protestant Anglo-Irish minority that had controlled the economic, political, social and cultural life of Ireland since at least the end of the 17th century. Combining an immense knowledge of Irish folklore and Gaelic verse with self-conscious flamboyance, Yeats was largely responsible for convincing the rest of the world that those Irish guys sure can write, and that they have a national identity as well. He was elected one of the first senators of the Irish Free State and awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. Well, to start with, let's have a look at the poem first. The Lake Isle of Innisfree was first published in 1890 and has made Innisfree a tiny island in Loch Isle in County Sligo, Ireland, now a place of pilgrimage. This green and watery landscape is where the young Yeats spent time as a child, and the idyllic imagery remained strong in his memory. He wrote this poem when he was in his early 20s, stuck in the metropolis of London, homesick, struggling to get his name known and his poems out in suitable form. We can also say that this poem expresses a set of desires familiar in modern world: to escape, to achieve peace and solitude, to be at one with nature. Yeats says almost nothing in the poem about what he would like to escape from, but his readers can easily imagine the stressful conditions of modern, especially urban life. Such desires have become common themes in romantic literature since the beginning of the 19th century, and Innisfree is a good example of late 19th century romanticism. Dear children, before we start with the stanzas of the poem, I would like to give you a brief summary of the poem. This poem was written at the end of the 19th century, when cities were growing quickly and nature was being abandoned for progress. The poem emphasizes the ability of nature to restore human spirit. The poet has not literally gone to Innisfree. However, in the end, although he hears the water lapping with low sounds by the shore, he is actually standing on the road. The contrast always readers to be better understand the importance of nature, because the speaker is imagining it with rich detail even though he is far away. So we can also say that this poem is about a man overwhelmed with urban life who dreams of going back to nature in order to find some peace. The man will build a small cabin there and grow some beans. He shall live alone and shall have some peace there. The sounds and sights of nature will be a comfort to him in comparison to the harsh pavement of the city. Also, in the poem, the speaker is yearning for a place of escape, his happy place, as many people will call it. It is in stark contrast to where he actually is, a street surrounded by grey pavement and hard silence. The first stanza of the poem reads as: I will rise and grow now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud. So we can say that the poet wishes to go to Innisfree, which is an island of Ireland. The speaker describes physical location on Innisfree where he will live alone in a self-made cabin. He describes all the qualities of new life in stanza 2 and says, "And I shall have some peace there, and for peace comes dropping, slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight is all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evenings full of the linnet's wing." All the qualities of this new life are stated in stanza 2 of the poem. Speaker needs peace. The pace of life will be slower. Nature will take over. And in the third stanza, he says, "I will rise and go now, for always night and day. I will hear the lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's grey, I hear it in the deep heart score." So he reiterates need to fulfill the wish. Even as he stands in the traffic amongst the crowds, he longs for that idyllic island on the loch. Let's have a look at the analysis of the poem. The Lake Isle of Innisfree is a 3-stanza poem, each quatrain made up of 3 long lines and 1 short, as you can see clearly from your books. The rhyme scheme is AB, AB, and all end rhymes are full. This brings a sense of closure and order to the poem. The lilting rhythm with each line, the way the keshora, a break or a pause in the middle of a verse, that indeed plays the vital role in slowing the rhythms down, and the stressed repetition of certain words and phrases are striking features of this poem. The opening line with the narrative verb will. The poet says, "I will rise and go now and go to Innisfree." That's why the opening line with the narrative verb will, it implies that the speaker is looking into the future, promising himself peace and an ideal existence. He wants to escape now while he is in the present, standing in the midst of the traffic, in the crowds, in the dreary hubbub of the city. So the poem's progress reflects an inner wish of the poet to get away from the anxiety of the current life to the harmony of ruler idol. The poem starts with the poet declaring that he will arise and go to Innisfree, where he will build a small cabin, a cabin of clay and wattles. Wattles here means twisted sticks, for making fences or walls. There he will have 9 bean rows and a beehive, and live alone in the glade loud with the sound of bees. The sound of bees, the bee loud glade, the loud sound of bees. He says that he will have peace there, for peace drop from the vales of morning to where the crickets sing. Cricket is again an insect. Midnight, there is a glimmer. Glimmer means, light of the moon. The light of the moon is glimmer, and noon is a purple glow. Noon, we can here also say that it is, the sunlight. So the sunlight is really bright. In the noon, it's really bright, and during midnight, there is the light, we can say light moonlight. And evening is full of linnet's wing. Linnet is again a small brown and grey bird with a short beak. The poet declares again that he will arise and go for always, night and day, and he hears the lake water lap with low sounds by the shore. But while he stands in the street, on the roadway, or on the pavement's grey, he hears the sound within himself in the deep heart score. So from line 1 of the second stanza, we see that the reason for this retreat of the speaker is his want of peace. That is the reason he wants to live alone so that no one can disturb him. He then goes on to describe the way peace descends on him, dropping slow. He means to say that peace had a way of embracing him. And from here on, there is a bit of metaphor and imagery. Peace starts in the morning, dropping from the fog. Peace is in the hearing of the cricket's song. The midnight sky of Innisfree is glimmering with stars and the moon. And noon is purple purple in color, and the evening is filled with a small bird's wing. This all kind of lend an unreal quality to the place, but at the same time it also goes to show how the speaker of the poem imagines the place to be beautiful, peaceful, without a doubt. The speaker repeats that he will go now, emphasizing again his resolution to go. He says it is because he hears the sound of water hitting against the shore even when he was on the roadway or pavement. Dear children, we now realize that the speaker is really in a sty. He is in a sty and he longs for Innisfree. I hear it in the deep heart score. The speaker means to say that going to Innisfree is his greatest desire, deeply embedded in his heart. There is again a bit of metaphor used here. The speaker's desire to go free into the lonely isle is so great that he could hear the water splashing while standing in the sea. So to sum up the poem here, we can say that the poet wishes to go to Innisfree, which is an island of Ireland. He thinks of living in natural surroundings by building a hut and living in it. The poet thinks he will find peace there. He desires to enjoy the slow pace of countryside living. And the poet lives in a crowded city and still is attracted by the rural sounds of Innisfree. He imagines hearing the sound of the lake water lapping by the shore. So the central idea of the poem is longing for peace and greenery and all that is natural. The central idea of the poem is to showcase the longing one feels for some quiet and alone time after living in a crowded, congested place like a city. The tone of the poem is peaceful in the first two stanzas. It turns slightly passionate towards the end of the third stanza. Otherwise, it is mostly thoughtful, dreamy, and full of longing. So we can say Yeats captures the longing for home and peace in this poem quite beautifully. Home, because Yeats spent his childhood there in the country Selangor, to which Innisfree belongs to. In fact, one can say this poem is a reflection of Keats' desire itself. At the time of its creation, Keats was in a bustling, crowded city, and his innermost desire to go to home and to peace came out bursting in the form of this poem. So let's have a look at the poetic devices in the Lake Isle of Innisfree. Imagery. There is a fair amount of imagery in this poem. We can behold that small cabin, those 9 rows of beans, that buzzing hive of the bees, the slowly dawning sky, the peaceful cricket song, the shimmery glimmer in midnight, the purple sky in the noon, and finally the beating of the small linnet bird's wings. These are all cases of imagery, dear children, which creates a vivid picture in the reader's mind. And the next, rhyme and rhythm. Every alternate lines have their last words rhyming with each other. This is observed in all the 3 stanzas. The rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B. There is also an internal rhyme in the 3rd line of the 3rd stanza, roadway and grey, and both rhyme with each other. So the first poetic device is imagery, and the next is rhyme and rhythm. And the third one is refrain. We have already discussed it before, that refrain, when there is a repetition of a verse after every stanza. There is slight repetition in the poem. The first line of the first stanza and the first line of the third stanza start the same way with the sentence, I will arise and go now. After refrain, we have one more poetic device, which is alliteration. Alliteration, repetition of the same consonant sound. In line 2 of the stanza, lake water lapping. So lake and lapping with low sound. Metaphor. There are a couple of metaphors in the poem. The first one occurs in the line 2 of the stanza, veils of morning, might refer to the fog or dew one often experiences in green places. And the last line of the poem is a metaphor too. It means to say that the speaker of the poem deeply desires it. Assonance and consonance. When the same vowel sounds are repeated in a line, it's called assonance. The repetition of the same consonant sounds or the consonant patterns at the end of the words is known as consonants. I'll repeat again. The same vowel sounds are repeated. Vowel sounds, children. In a line, it's called assonance. The repetition of same consonant sounds or the consonant patterns at the end of the words is known as consonants. So lines 10, 3 and 4 are examples. Live alone in bee loud glade, all a glimmer, purple glow, full of linnets, lake water lapping with low sound. Okay. Then we have one more, anaphora. Anaphora, when two or more consecutive lines start with the same word or a phrase. It occurs throughout. So this was all about the poem, the Lake Isle of Innisfree. So we can say that this poem explores poet's longing for peace and tranquility of Innisfree, a place where he spent a lot of time as a boy. I hope you're clear with the poem.